Still Austin Whiskey Company is a true grain-to-glass distillery situated in the heart of South Austin. The Still Austin team is committed to producing the highest quality whiskey with a process they've perfected using local resources and sustainable practices. Never sourced, always handmade, in-house. Their double gold winning flagship straight bourbon, cask strength bourbon, and still rye gin are available throughout Texas and can also be shipped to most U.S. states. To find out more, visit www.stillaustin.com.
With Liquor Barn, you can shop your favorite bourbon, that perfect bottle of wine, or discover something new. To place an order for pickup or delivery, download the Liquor Barn app, visit liquorbarn.com, or call your nearest Liquor Barn location. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our email list for all the latest news on products, promotions, and events. Liquor Barn, where Kentuckians go to celebrate life. Cheers!
Proudly made in the USA and inspired by the American lifestyle, Country Smooth Bourbon was developed by the first female founder and CEO of an American bourbon whiskey company as a refined experience to be savored on its own or enjoyed in cocktails. We are dedicated to celebrating the spirit of America and the crafting of premium bourbon whiskey. To learn more, visit countrysmooth.com, where you can order online or find a retailer near you. Cheers. Country Smooth. Female founded, country grounded.
There's a new award-winning 4-grain straight bourbon whiskey that's been taking the market by storm, Penelope Bourbon. Penelope's balanced yet flavorful taste profile comes from a unique blend of 3 bourbon mash bills. Currently available in 3 expressions, 4-grain, barrel strength, and toasted, Penelope is remarkably smooth and flavorful. So whether you're sipping neat or using it in your favorite cocktail, Penelope is perfect for you. Penelope Bourbon is available throughout Kentucky, as well as select markets and online at penelopebourbon.com.
Welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast, your source for all things bourbon. Join your hosts, Mark and Matt, as they drink and review bourbons, share news about upcoming events, interview the who's who in the bourbon world, and, most importantly, bring you along for the fun of living the bourbon life. Now, here's your hosts, Mark and Matt.
All right, everybody, welcome back for another episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me, as always, is my good friend, my co-host, Matt. Matt, how you doing today?
Hey, Mark, I'm doing great, man. How are you? It's good to be back in the Bourbon Life studios for this recording.
Yeah, that's right.
We took the show on the road last week, and now we're back home.
Show on the road, and we didn't make any mistakes. We didn't forget anything. That's the thing I was happiest about, is that we actually managed to pack all of our gear and record everything without any real issues other than the echo that we had in the warehouse.
Hey, it's just proof we can get it done. We can do it.
That's right, we can. But yeah, so enjoying a beautiful sunny day here in Lexington with about 24 degrees and snow on the ground. So, what are you going to do, man? Here in a few weeks, we'll finally get to spring forward. It'll be spring, and I'll be happy and outside again, right? So,
yeah, we'll be complaining about the heat then. But that's all right. We'll get through it.
Well, you're probably right. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm really excited about this show. Tell everybody who we have with us today.
I would love to, Mark, and let's waste no time getting right into it. Joining us on the Bourbon Life Podcast and joining you all out there listening is the Master Distiller from Buffalo Trace, Harlen Wheatley. Harlen, welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast. How are you?
I'm glad to be here. Good to chat. Always good to chat about a little bourbon.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I was really excited when we were able to get this put together. So we really appreciate you spending some time with us this afternoon. We don't want to take up a lot of your time, but we're both big fans of Buffalo Trace. So we're really excited to have you on the show with us. And, we, like I said before, we drink 3 different things usually during our show. In this round, we have something poured up. It's the Buffalo Trace bourbon. So Harlen, since this is kind of your baby, you want to just tell everybody a little bit about what we have here?
Well, with Buffalo Trace, we have tried since inception. So the first year we put Buffalo Trace out there for people to try was in 1999. And, we started with 0 cases. I mean, it was new to market. And at the time I was very fortunate to be part of that project from the beginning. And at the time, there wasn't a whole lot of new bourbons out there. And, people, bars and restaurants and things, to be honest with you, weren't too excited about bringing in another, a different bourbon. We introduced kind of the concept of something new, and batch. It was a small batch bourbon at the time, still small batch, but we make a lot of it. And it's a rye bourbon. It's 90 proof. We wanted to really showcase the distillery. We wanted to represent the distillery. When you come to the distillery and take a tour, when you leave Buffalo Trace Distillery, there's no problem recognizing where you've been. Before that, we had all kinds of different products and things, and that was the whole issue. So we started that Buffalo Trace, and we started small. We started only in Kentucky, and then we branched out from there. And of course, we're happy to say we're in every state now and growing nicely. We're starting to become global. We're just getting started in that. And, a lot of people are lucky enough for us that bourbon is a worldwide, spirit, and
Sure.
people know bourbon across the globe. And we're beginning to get it out there. So
Yeah.
I hope people can try it.
So this was actually released in 99. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
That was the first year. Yep.
Okay. So I mean, as far as bourbon brands go, it's still pretty young, 22, 21 years old. So
yeah, definitely
that's
a
good.
relatively new brand.
Yeah. All right. And this one comes in at 90 proof. And it is part of what we know as mash bill number 1 line. Is that correct?
That is very correct. You've been doing your homework.
Well, that's what I get paid the big bucks for, Harlan. So
Yes.
But yeah, so it's and I know there's no disclosure with regard to the actual mash bill itself, but it is the lower rye mash bill, correct?
Right. We put corn, and everybody knows that's listening probably that bourbon has to have at least 51% corn in it. The majority of the grain has to be corn in order to basically preserve the taste of bourbon. So it's a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. So minimum age on anything that you can call straight, it has to be at least 2 years old. But our standard is 8-year-old on our Buffalo Trace, and we want it to be very versatile. So when you pop that cork, you can drink it straight. You can put it on a block of ice.
Sure.
It makes great cocktails, and we have a lot of fun across the country with bartenders, and then their creativity and how they can use Buffalo Trace. It's just been fun to watch.
Yeah. And this is, to me, this is, well, when you think of Buffalo Trace, you think of Buffalo Trace bourbon. So to me, it's synonymous with the distillery itself. But this one, I think price wise, it's right around the very low $20 at retail. Is that correct?
Definitely, you can find it sometimes less than 20, but it's right around 20, 21 usually.
Yeah.
And we want it to be affordable. We actually want all of our products to be affordable. It doesn't always work out like that, but
Right.
we want all of them to be affordable. That was part of the design of the product, and we want people to, enjoy it. And, and the philosophy for us is very simple. Keep the taste really good. Keep variety up, because we know that some people like rye bourbon, some people like wheat bourbon. We're going to taste some other brands later, but we know we have to have variety for people to be happy, and we want that quality to be unmatched. So, and that's what we're after every day. Keep it simple.
Well, Matt, I see you're over there. You've been nosing this for a little bit. What are you picking up on this one?
Immediately on the nose with this one, I get nutmeg, and I'm getting some orange and vanilla, and it's got a good bit of oak coming through. Nice oaky flavor, good barrel char with it as well, kind of a sweet toasty oak.
Yeah, and Harlan, that really surprised me when you talk about the age on it, because I was under the impression, and I don't know why, I just assumed that this, maybe because of the price point, that I just assumed that it was a younger aged product. I didn't realize that it was actually at least 8 years old. I mean, a 90 proof bourbon at 8 years old or older for $21. I mean, that's pretty impressive that you guys that you guys are able to do that.
Well, we're very fortunate, right, that we have the scale, we have the ability to do that. So, keep the prices affordable and, keep the quality up. And you can do that through volume. So we're making a lot of bourbon these days. So we're very fortunate to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's good. Well, getting back to you actually personally, our listeners know who you are. Everybody recognizes your name, knows that you're with Buffalo Trace. But can you kind of tell us a little bit about who you are? How you got into the industry, how long you've been involved with everything?
Well, I started pretty much straight out of college and came in with a chemistry and a chemical engineering degree. I knew I wanted to stay close to home and stay close to family. That was kind of my main focus. And to be honest, there wasn't a lot of jobs for chemical engineers in Kentucky in 1994. I've been at it for 26 years. I started under a guy named Gary Gayhart. He was my predecessor. I'm the sixth distiller since the Civil War. So most of my predecessors worked here for decades, right? And
Sure.
And I understand that because it's kind of a way of life, and you devote most of your energy and time to the legacy of making good bourbon, and I'm not doing it any differently. We've got a lot of we actually made more bourbon this year than has ever been made at Buffalo Trace. So we've crossed a milestone, and I hate to say it, but we're breaking the record every year. So, it's going to be a short-lived record, but next year we'll break it again because we have no plans of stopping. We're expanding. We're spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on expansion, and no plans of slowing down. So,
yeah, I mean, that's great. So now you're a Kentucky guy through and through. Yep. Is that right? You're from Kentucky originally? Yeah, that's what.
Yeah. I was born in Mount Sterling. I grew up in Boone County, a little north.
Oh yeah.
And then I went to school at University of Kentucky. So I came to Lexington, lived there for 4 years, and then I moved to Frankfort. I haven't moved too far from home.
Well, Harlen, we were actually probably then at UK at pretty much the same time. So because I was a 90 graduate from UK undergrad, so I think probably close to the same time. Then I went to law school there, and kind of like you, I moved over from Eastern Kentucky and just kind of stayed here in Lexington. And but yeah, I mean, I think being from Kentucky, you realize the importance, and especially of bourbon and what that means to the Commonwealth and to a lot of people. I think as a younger person, I didn't really realize the impact, but then as I got older, obviously saw the importance of it. And see what it does for the state, which is pretty incredible. Go ahead.
I was going to say I've been fortunate enough to do some traveling. I've been a lot of different places and other countries and so on. But everywhere I go, I talk about the products that Kentucky make. And you can go into a busy city, New York City, go into a bar. You get a drink of Buffalo Trace, and it just brings you back home.
Yeah.
And reminds you of Frankfort and everything we're all about and all the people involved. I mean, that's something else. I've been fortunate enough to watch. We started with 50 people when I came here, and we're up to 550 at the distillery and 2,600 in the company now.
Wow.
So I mean, we've just blown up, and all these people. It's just so fun to watch the pride and all the hard work that these guys are putting in to, put this product on the market. And when you go to another city and see that, it's just something to be proud of.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. There's, it's funny because as a kid, I've talked about this before on other episodes, but as a kid for me, the University of Kentucky, the basketball team, that was something we had a great sense of pride in, just because they were the best. And then it's always fun now as an adult to be, take pride in the bourbon and, know that we produce 95% or more of the world's bourbon. So it's always good to get to talk to guys like you that are the ones responsible for putting all this out. So you became master distiller there in
2005.
2005. So you're going into your 16th year here, I guess. Then is that right? 15, 16.
Well, 26 altogether, but
Sure.
yeah, 16. For the master distiller role. I mean, I'm involved with so much stuff. I joke around all the time. I'm the chief bottle washer. I'm the, real estate agent. I'm the farm manager. A little bit of everything. So it's fun.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you because we talked to a lot of master distillers, but I don't know that I've ever just said, can you summarize, or is there any way you can actually summarize as master distiller what you do, what all goes into that role?
Well, my primary responsibility is the quality and the direction of the distilled spirits, just period, just whatever it takes to get the quality product in the barrel and inventory on the shelf. That's really what everything I do every day. And so it all revolves around plans and processes and, expansion these days. I'm a construction manager too. I'm involved with a lot of the, every single expansion project. Like I said, hundreds of millions of dollars that we're spending, and real estate is important, but, we got to make sure we're planning for the future. So,
Sure.
Planner, just make sure everything's getting done, and every distillery is different. So I think the master distiller role is the guy, the person. There's lots of females and males out there doing a great job, with the direction of their distillates, and you're measured by the quality of your products. So they're all different. Some people are just getting started and they're getting products out on the market, and then some distilleries have been around for a while. So it just depends.
Yeah. So when you took over the master distiller role, did you envision or even imagine at any point in time what the bourbon industry would be like down the road, what it is today?
No, we did imagine it. I mean, we as leaders, at the time talked about, we would like to see Buffalo Trace become a, well-known brand in the U.S. and so on. And our goals are always to do what we're doing, but we never dreamed that it would happen as fast as it did. I think it was kind of a perfect storm of a lot of hard work by a lot of people, and then the demand, the secret got out, and the demand started to grow, and people wanted to, people wanted to spend money on something that they could have confidence in. They didn't want to blow money. We went through that period, and so, bourbon fits the bill for that. They like being connected to the history and the stories, and the cocktail craze is still going. I think it's still going, and if you go to Europe and all these places where they've opened these awesome cocktail bars and things where people are, creating all these great things for people to consume. And that's what makes bourbon so great, is it's so flexible. You don't have to drink it a certain way. You can have it 10 different ways, compared to our competitors that you basically can only drink it one way.
Yeah.
So, it's just a great product and something to be proud of. And, of course, always drink in moderation. That's what we talk about all the time. But as far as the products go, it's just fun to connect the stories to the consumers, and it's part of the fun.
So now you got me curious, talking about, thinking about UK and thinking about being from Sterling, as my wife's from Powell County. So she always just calls it Sterling.
Yeah.
But what was one of the first things you remember drinking in terms of bourbon? Do you remember what that would have been?
Well, I have to say, I'm going to give them a plug. My first bourbon was a Wild Turkey 101, and I liked it. I mean, I liked the taste of it, probably a little bit too much. I was young and dumb, like I am now still. I'm still dumb, but I know better. I know to respect the Buffalo. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I always like to ask that question though. What's somebody's first thing I remember drinking was my friend's dad. He was a Rebel Yell fan, so that's like the first bourbon that I recall ever getting to sip on, breaking into his liquor cabinet when I was younger. So
Yeah.
But hey, Matt, going back to this bourbon, what else you picking up on the palate on this one?
Well, let me ask a quick question, Harlan. Before you had Buffalo Trace out into the market in 1999, was there a bourbon that you all produced that fit this bill or fit this portfolio, or was this something completely new that you had out that took the place of some there that opened up a new slot, or was there something else around?
Well, we didn't have a lot of brands in '99. Now we did purchase. We had some Old Charter that was a rye bourbon. We had Weller, of course, and then we had Ancient Age, which is at the time was our biggest volume. So the Old Charter recipe was a little bit different than Ancient Age. It's also a rye bourbon, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to convert some of those barrels, to Buffalo Trace and continue that brand. And that we take that same recipe and we, you probably know, but we use different labels depending on age and of course taste too. But Eagle Rare is a good example of that, 10-year-old. But we weren't doing the Eagle Rare till a little bit later. We renovated that Eagle Rare around 2000, if I remember right. But those are the brands that we had at the time, and now we're up to 17 different recipes, and I think it's something like 50 bourbons, in growing, and no plans of slowing down.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that as well in terms of the different expressions, because I started to try to count, just the bottles that I have, but then also looking online, trying to figure out how many different expressions you all have at this point. So you said 17, is that right?
Well, that's recipes now.
Okay.
Some of those aren't to market yet, but we've got, of course, I'm not even counting the experimental recipes, but we've got a lot of full-time recipes now, and then expressions like Blanton's, 5 or 6 different Blantons and several different Eagle Rares, and and when you add it all up, it's 50 something, these days. But and that's the fun. Again, remember I talked about variety. It's important because some people like a 4-year-old bourbon, but when you put bourbons into competitions, generally an older bourbon will win. So 8 to 10 to 12 or 15, years. That's when that balancing act really starts to show up between the barrel and the recipe.
Yep.
And you win a few awards with that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Matt, we're actually at the end of our first session here. So real quick, some final thoughts on the Buffalo Trace.
So the palate on it, I pick up a lot of caramel. Some like the orange that I got on the nose, I think is becoming a little bit more toward like an apricot, but it's got good vanilla and caramel, a nice sweetness, and it's got kind of a tannic finish, I'm finding.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny because I don't get that on the finish, but I do get, for being the lower rye mash bill, I'm kind of surprised how much spice I still get on the finish on this. And I can feel that on my tongue, that spiciness, that tingle that I get from a rye. And to me, it drinks higher than 90 proof. Because sometimes I think when you think 90 proof, for me, because I like 120, 130 proof, and when you think 90 proof, you think, well, it's not gonna have that oomph that a higher proof might have. But honestly, to me, this really does. It's got that nice rye spiciness to it, and it just coats the palate really well. So yeah, I really enjoy this. This is one of my coworkers. This is his absolute favorite bourbon in the world. So anytime I have to get him a gift, or anytime he gets a gift from me, it's a bottle of Buffalo Trace bourbon. So yeah, definitely a good one. So I'll definitely enjoy this one. So, well, let's get a word from our sponsor and take a quick break, and we'll be back with more with Harlen Wheatley, Master Distiller with Buffalo Trace. So everybody just sit tight, and we'll be back in a second.
The Stave Restaurant is a bourbon lover's paradise right here in the heart of bourbon country. Located at 5711 McCracken Pike in Millville, Kentucky, between Castle and Key and Woodford Reserve, Chef Kyle Klatka prepares amazing food each day that features an elevated Kentucky-inspired cuisine. With a full-service bar, great bourbon flights, and signature cocktails, the Stave is the perfect place to catch up with friends after a fun-filled day of touring the local distilleries. Be sure to check them out online at thestavekentucky.com or at Instagram and Facebook at The Stave Kentucky.
Located just east of Lake Tahoe and the Sierra Nevada mountains, Frey Ranch Distillery was founded by fifth-generation Nevada farmers. Our grain-to-glass bourbon is made using a 4-grain mash bill, including a non-GMO corn, rye, wheat, and barley, all of which is 100% sustainably grown on the 1,500-acre Frey Ranch. And our commitment to excellence shows with a recent gold medal win at the 2020 Whiskeys of the World and USA Spirits competitions. Find out more at www.freyranch.com. All right, everybody, welcome back for round 2 of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Matt. Matt, you're hanging in over there. You doing all right?
Oh, man, I am doing great, Mark. I'm doing really well. How about yourself?
Doing great, man. This is a fun episode. I've been really looking forward to this one, so happy to be doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So we are back with Harlen Wheatley from Buffalo Trace, and Harlen, this round we got something a little different poured up. Do you want to tell everybody what we got this round?
Well, one of the things that's fun for us is to offer some variety and different recipes for people to try. And you're getting ready to try our Weller line, which is our wheated bourbon. And it's our 90 proof. And the standard for that is a 7-year-old. So really, that's what I always say with the Weller is that recipe starts off life here in this offering, and then it goes all the way up to Pappy 23 and some of the other special expressions that we offer. So we've got everything in between, and we really want to offer barrel strength, uncut and unfiltered with William LaRue Weller, part of our antique collection. So if you like wheated bourbon, we try to offer a little bit of everything for this, and so it's a fun one to taste.
Yeah, and this is the special reserve. This one kind of, I call it the baseline, but this is kind of the introductory Weller, for lack of a better term. You got the Antique 107, you've got the full proof now, and you've got the Weller 12, and then you guys recently you just did they did the CYPB, right? The white label. And then also
Craft Your Perfect Bourbon.
Yeah. Yep. And then the single barrel. Was that last year that came out? Was that last year single barrel?
That was last year, I think. You did a good job summarizing those, but that's a good example of taking one recipe and just making all kinds of really interesting offerings and different expressions for people to try, and just to show people, that you can do that with different aging techniques and locations and length of time and so on.
Yeah. And that the full proof, when that was released. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, I was just going to ask. So I think a question that's certainly burning in my mind here is we have the special reserve, and you're saying that starts probably not stated, but around 7 year. So what are some of the determining factors that takes a barrel of this mash bill on these different journeys of the Weller, the wheated line? Because as we were talking about, there are so many places that one barrel could go. It could go into special reserve. It could become the Antique 107. It could go into Pappy line. It could be William LaRue Weller. How do you dictate where a barrel ends up on the bottling line?
Yeah, so that is a good question. So let's say this year I'm just making up numbers because we don't really talk about numbers, but we give away, let's say this year we make 100,000 barrels of William LaRue Weller and a wheated bourbon. Let's say it doesn't actually have the label yet. It's a wheated bourbon. We put it in the barrel. We put 100,000 barrels away based on anticipated use. So all these sales guys go in there and they say, I think I can sell 50,000 cases of Weller 12 and 100,000 cases of, Weller 7 and so on. And then we take those 100,000 barrels and put those away based on what they say they think they can sell. And we know that we can't age a 12-year-old on the top floor. That's a terrible idea because our warehouses some of them are 9 stories tall. And when you get up in that attic, that upper section, it's going to age a little faster. So we got to really watch our age of our products and location based on anticipated use. So of those 50,000 cases, we want to make sure we put enough barrels in the second and third floor or fourth floor, whatever, to get the proper aging over a 12-year period. And then, if we're doing Pappy 23 is another good example, it's definitely shouldn't go on the top floor. But the 7-year-old we can mix, so we can take some from the fourth floor and some from maybe the first floor or second and fifth or whatever, and we can get that blend just right for the taste profile. And every one of those offerings that you mentioned has its own taste profile that we have to consistently make from year to year, and that's part of everybody's job, is to make sure that that product's made consistently year to year.
Good question, Matt.
That's a long answer, but that's a good question.
No, that's
Matt.
I think the answer that, at least I know I was sure like burning to find the answer for. I'm imagine a lot of our listeners were curious about that too.
Yeah, and that kind of blows my mind to sit here and think, okay, we're talking about a Weller 12, so we're looking 12 years down the road, and we're thinking, okay, we're going to be able to sell X amount of that product 12 years down the road, or Pappy, 20 or 15, 20, 23, we're going to be able to sell potentially this much product down the road. And you guys, I'm envisioning all these spreadsheets on Excel and just how in the world you're able to keep up with all that stuff. So yeah.
When I started, we didn't have a computer.
Oh,
so when I started, it was on a clipboard, but we since have computerized quite a bit of that, or all of it actually, and we use pretty big databases.
Yeah, I'm sure you'd have to. I can't imagine. So now, how many barrels was it? The 6 million or 8 millionth? What? I can't remember now.
We recently celebrated the 7 millionth.
7 million. Okay.
Since Prohibition.
Okay.
And then we're working on number 8, and it'll be soon.
Wow.
That's about all I can tell you.
I was going to say, so you guys have a pretty substantial yearly production volume there without a doubt. So now in terms of your warehousing and stuff, because you're down there kind of on the river, right? So do you have, is there still ample space to grow and to expand there on that property, or do you have to are you going other places to find space?
Yeah, we're up to 460 acres right here on the river, and we were very lucky it's been about 6 years ago or so, and the farm directly behind us came up for sale, and we bought that. Okay. And brought that into the fold, and we're building warehouses on that farm.
Okay.
And we're building one warehouse that holds 58,000 barrels every 3 months and filling it up as fast as we build it. So literally the day they've got the permit to the occupancy permit, we've put barrels in it the next day. We're right behind them, and we're filling those up as fast as we can fill them. And it's all based on, demand, and we're just very grateful that that's happening.
Yeah. So going back to this one, the Weller, the Special Reserve, Matt, we were kind of talking a little bit about the nosing on there, and then we kind of got, not sidetracked. We got a great question, but what are you picking up on this one, Matt? We'll jump back to that.
I get a little bit of a dark fruit on the nose and a good amount of grain. The wheat really comes through, like a nice soft honey, just a good, you can smell more of the grain on it in a good way too. And then the age is coming through with the oak on the barrel as well. It's got a really, really pleasant nose. This is one of my favorite noses. I really just love the way that this product line comes across on the nose. Yeah,
I do too. And for me, well, it's funny because nobody can see this, but of course you guys, but for me, the big bottle, the handle, I've got 2 or 3 or more of these. Anytime I can find those, I'm going to grab those. And Special Reserve isn't something that I necessarily drink neat on a regular basis, but I will mix the shit out of that with a hot toddy. That's just, I mean, it's just something I enjoy, especially during the winter months here in Kentucky. And man, there's something about that mash bill, that wheated bourbon, specifically the Weller Special Reserve. There is just something about that mixed in with that honey and that lemon. I mean, I've not found a better bourbon that I enjoy with a hot toddy more than the Special Reserve. So that's why I buy the handles, because you got to have a good supply of that.
Well, that's a good example of what I meant by flexibility. Is you can make a really good hot toddy with a wheated bourbon, and really depends on what you're trying to make. I mean, if the guy's making a cocktail that mellow, mild, but yet strong flavor of wheated bourbon, you know what I'm saying? It's
Sure.
it's able to to make really good cocktails with that.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like I said, it's my go-to. That's why I buy the handles anytime I could find one, I'll go ahead and buy it. And this is, talking about the Buffalo Trace earlier. There are times where that is actually hard to find on the shelves. When you can find it, it's always good to pick up a bottle. But I know last year or year before, in 2019, there were times where, I could go into a store and they would have the stickers up that says one per person per day. People were like, "Oh no, we're going to run out of Buffalo Trace." But the same thing with Weller. When it's released, it's gone. I mean, it's out, and that same day it's gone. So if you can find it, I say buy it.
Well, and across the country and like I said earlier about the globe, is it's kind of the same story, and we understand that, which is why I always give people tours and show them around and show them all the expansion plans we're doing. And at the end of the tour, they see everything and they say, you know what, I've got some confidence that we're eventually going to be able to get bottles on the shelf, because, we're just making so much product, and we're doing everything as fast as we can without compromising quality.
Sure.
And that's the big deal. Is you asked about it earlier with Buffalo Trace, is we could fix the problem with a 4-year-old bourbon.
Right.
If we could drop that age and, not, compromise on quality and so on, but we're just not going to do it. And we've told people all along that we've got so much bourbon to sell. We're making it expanding as fast as we can without compromising quality. We're not going to do that. And we told people there are going to be times when their shelves are empty, and just be patient with us, and, buy it when you can. Hopefully you can find it at affordable prices, and just be patient with us, and we're gonna keep making more and put it on the shelf. So
yeah,
you'll eventually be able to get it regularly.
That's good to hear. I mean, and it's not your fault that you guys make a great product. I mean, you can't help it. You make a good product, people want it, they're going to buy it, and there's going to be a high demand for it. And that really, I mean, that runs across the board. Pretty much, I'm thinking about your lineup, and even Eagle Rare. I mean, and Eagle Rare to me, that's actually my wife's favorite bourbon, and that's one of the first bourbons that I really started drinking that made me feel like I was actually a real bourbon drinker. But you got a 10-year-old single. Well, used to be a single barrel, I guess technically. Yeah. So yeah, can you explain that? I mean, I know it's not labeled as a single barrel, but is it just the bottling process that really changed that setup?
Yeah, what happened was and we tried to actually, expand our single barrel bottling line as much as we could, and it's all by hand with our single barrel stuff.
Right.
The problem was the brand just grew to the point where we just couldn't keep up, and we had to make a hard decision on, are we going to be able to continue the brand, continue the label, keep the 10-year-old quality, and then make it in smaller batches, and continue the label. So we did that. But, still, it's our most award-winning bourbon that we have.
Yeah.
And it's a great bourbon on the rocks. People ask me all the time, how would you drink Eagle Rare? And you can drink it in cocktails if you've got plenty of it. But man, it's just a really good bourbon neat, or on the rocks. So.
Yeah. And that's another one, anytime that I can find a bottle, my wife was down in Nashville and just happened into a local liquor store down there, and she texted me a picture. There was one lone bottle of Eagle Rare on the shelf, and I was just like, "There's not even a question. Just
Yeah.
go ahead and buy it." And and down there I mean, $35, which is a good price. I mean, you're talking about a 10-year-old, mostly. I mean, I still call it a single barrel, but I know it's
It's a
technically,
sip, it's a sipping bourbon for sure,
yeah, yeah,
and one that can stand up to any bourbon on the market. So
yeah.
you definitely if you can find it for reasonable prices like that, you definitely want to get it.
Yeah, well, it was a lot of fun. Used to you could walk into Walgreens or some of these pharmacies, CVS even, and randomly there would be Eagle Rare for $29 or something on the shelf. So one of those ones you never pass up. So, well, Matt, going back to the special reserve, what else you picking up on this one?
Oh, it's got the palate on it. I get a lot of the caramel coming across, a lot of vanilla on it as well. A little bit of citrus and the oak, like a nice smoky char coming across on it as well.
Yeah.
So Harlan, how old is the Weller line? How long have you been producing Weller?
Well, we started making the weeded recipe in 1988. That was the first year we made it, and we were actually making it for Stitzel Weller.
Okay.
And we were, at the time, again, times were tough. We were doing whatever we could to make ends meet. And we ended up buying that label in 1997. And when we bought, we were very fortunate to have barrels already in inventory that we had been making.
Right.
So we basically did the paperwork and kept the barrels where they were and kept the product going. And, it's been a great product for us. And, we feel like, it's a good alternative or a good, another expression for people to have. I don't always say you should only drink wheated bourbons or rye bourbon.
Right.
You should have a little bit of variety for any, depending on the cocktail. Like you said, a hot toddy, that's perfect. That's a perfect example. Something, something that would complement that recipe.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about a little bit about the history there, and that was something I meant to ask you about 15 minutes ago. But can you talk just a little bit about the history of the distillery itself, just so our listeners kind of have a background of?
Yeah, it's a little bit. I think we are the oldest running, continuous running distillery in the country. In 1771, Daniel Boone, passed through this spot. It's known as the Leestown Settlement. And 1773 is when the McAfee brothers, surveyed the land and created this Leestown.
Mhm.
It was called Leestown. And the first thing they did was put up a mom and pop still and, right on the banks of the river. And they built a little building there. It's the first building, I know it was the first building in Frankfort, maybe the first building in central Kentucky at the time, 1773. So, and we've been basically expanding ever since. I mean, E.H. Taylor was a guy that really spent a lot of money back then in, 1840s and 50s
Right.
to, put the distillery on the map, really, at that time, make it modern with steam power and things like that. We had boats coming up the river, picking up, bourbon and taking it to New Orleans. And really we had a way to, sell and, create income for the distillery. But I have meetings with these we're on the National Historic Landmark.
Yep.
We are known as a National Historic Landmark. And I have these meetings with that group regularly. And we look at the Sanborn maps and say, we really haven't changed. We started out with this one building and then we expanded 2 or 3 buildings and, we're doing it every year. We're building more and more buildings and we just continue in the process, and it's just fun to do.
Well, yeah, you talked a little bit. You mentioned a couple, E.H. Taylor, for example, and you talked about Elmer earlier. I mean, you're in some pretty rare company there in terms of master distillers and guys that have been at the helm there. So do you ever feel, do you ever feel a sense of pressure or anything from being, from that lineage that you're in now?
Yeah, I mean, there's some pressure. I mean, you want to make sure do a good job, and I mean, I guess that's why the tenures on all these distillers are so long. They're always trying to outdo each other or whatever. But we want to make sure to pass along the knowledge and pass along the legacy because of the history. You can't really. I mean, you could, but you don't want to screw it up. So you try to do a good job, make it. I knew Elmer personally. I spent a lot of time with Elmer. We did a lot of things together and got to know him over the years. And it was no doubt in my mind that I wanted to continue that legacy along. And, a guy that contributed so much, he started right after World War II and worked right up until he passed away when he was 93 years old.
Wow.
So, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. I'm pretty broke down, but I'm going to try to stick with it as long as I can.
And I was going to say, no, now come on, Harlen, we're like right at the same age. So, don't say that. That'll make me feel old.
I've been rode hard and put up wet.
Man, that's just the Kentucky upbringing. That's just the way that works. All right. Well, we are actually at the end here of session 2. So Matt, going back, final thoughts on the Weller Special Reserve.
Oh, Special Reserve is one that's always on my bar. Always is, always will be.
Yeah.
What do you think about the new package that we came out with? That was about 5 or 6 years ago. I like the way we matched it up with the 12 and the 107. And
yeah. I like it. I quite like it as well. The new bottle design and the nice, vibrant, bright colors on the labels as well, but still the paying homage to the older font and the older look to it. I think the packaging is quite attractive.
That's an important part of it. I mean, we want people to see it on the shelf and understand the labels and, the stories. So that was a big part.
Yeah. Well, definitely a good job and definitely a good bourbon. And, I'm a big fan of the entire line. I can't get my hands on the B-Tech Weller, but what I've had several different expressions, it's different years. I've always enjoyed it just because I'm kind of a higher proof drinker and that's one of my favorites to get my hands on. But the full proof, I got to tell you, when that started coming out, I think I've snagged probably 6 or 7 different single barrels on that one. Been very lucky to find those. And 114 proof, that is definitely one of my favorite bourbons to drink, no question about it. So very, very good. But yeah, the Special Reserve is great. Like I said, it's not something I use as a daily drinker, but I do mix it with a hot toddy, and it's just, it's great. Absolutely love it. So, all right. Well, I tell you what, let's get a word from our sponsor, take a little break, and we'll be back in just a second with more with Harlen Wheatley, Master Distiller at Buffalo Trace. So everybody just sit tight, and we'll be right back.
Three Chords line of whiskeys embody the spirit of creativity. The whiskey is a true collaboration between producer and composer Neil Giraldo and master blender distiller Ari Sussman. The 3 Chord team of expert blenders, coopers, and sensory professionals have developed a multi-step process they called Perfectly Tuned Taste. This process begins by carefully selecting the finest bourbon and rye whiskeys from Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana, and then blending them together. Find out more about the whiskeys and distribution in your area at www.3chordbourbon.com.
Huling Station from Old Dominick is all about balancing tradition and innovation. The historic Huling Station warehouse in Memphis, Tennessee, housed the Old Dominick brand more than a century ago, and today is celebrated with 3 distinct whiskey mash bills, including Huling Station Straight Bourbon, Huling Station Straight Wheat, and Huling Station Blend, which is a blend of the straight bourbon and straight wheat, all of which are exclusively aged in West Tennessee white oak barrels. Visit olddominick.com/shop to find more information and to purchase online. Be sure to follow at Old Dominick on Instagram and Facebook for the latest news and weekly cocktail recipes. All right, everybody, welcome back for the third and final session or segment, whichever you prefer to call it, of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me, as always, fortunately, still here with me today is my co-host, Matt. Matt, how you doing over there?
Mark, I'm doing great. Looking forward to session number 3 of the Bourbon Life Podcast, because we have a great guest joining us tonight, or whenever it is listening for you all. But the Master Distiller of Buffalo Trace, Harlen Wheatley, has been sticking around and is going to take us through our final pour here on session number 3. So, Harlen, what do we have poured up?
Well, again, our focus is always on delivering the highest quality we can, but also delivering variety. So we tasted some rye bourbon, and we tasted some wheated bourbon, and now we're going to taste a whole different category called Rye Whiskey. And with Rye Whiskey, the focus is very similar to bourbon, the same kind of production methods, new barrels, same stills. We use the same yeast. But the main thing is you change up that recipe with at least 51% rye to be a rye whiskey. So now you've got this majority of the grain being a rye, and it does delivering, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but it delivers spice and fruits and not many vegetables, but it's got a lot of esters and things in it that gives it that flavor. And the fun part is we try to deliver different ages as well. You're tasting a 6-year-old, I think.
Okay.
And we go all the way up to 18-year-old with a Sazerac antique collection.
Yeah, the BTAC. Yeah, that's another killer. That's another great one. If you can find that or get the opportunity to enjoy that, no question about it. So, Matt, what are you picking up on this one over there? You've been working it over. So what do you got?
Oh, it's got a great nose. The grain of the rye comes across. I get the spiciness and just that really great aroma. I'm thinking of like fresh baked bread. And then there's a real nice like pepperiness. It opens up to a nice like, cracked pepper on the nose. And I pick up a little bit of that subtle fruit in the background, almost like a little spearmint, I think, is what I'm picking up too.
Yeah, that's what keeps coming back to me every time I take a whiff of it, and that's what I love when I sniff a rye and I pick up that mint. I absolutely love that. So every time I stick my nose down in there, I pick up the there's like a sweetness to it, which is really nice. So I mean I know there's no mash bill disclosed on this one, but this is not a 95.5 rye, so this is something that's it definitely has some corn to it, I'm assuming. So you're going to get that sweetness to it, but I love it when I can pick up that like you said, Matt, that mintiness to it. It's yeah, really, really nice on the nose. So Harlan, you mentioned earlier, you said something about the barrels and things. Do you all have your own cooperage, or do you get your barrels from someplace else?
We basically monopolize East Bernstadt Company, and
okay.
they were their number one customer. We're involved with the aspects of picking wood and aging wood and all the things we do there at East Bernstadt. So they do a great job, meeting the needs of everything we need, and we're very happy with them.
So now with your different expressions that you have, because we've tasted the the Buffalo Trace, which is the lower rye bourbon mash bill. We've had the wheated mash bill. Now we're drinking the actual rye whiskey. I mean, do you all use the same barrel, the same char level on the barrels, or do you alternate that, or toast some of them, or what do you do?
Well, so there's two things that we do the same for all of our whiskey, and one of them is yeast. So we use the same yeast, and then the other one is the barrel. So we have the same specs on our barrel. We age our wood for a minimum of 6 months.
Okay.
And we char it to a number 4 char, and we just feel like that gives us our best overall expressions on our recipes. And we did learn through testing that it does depend on recipes. So depending on your yeast and what type of recipe you have is what delivers that flavor. And we settled on this number 4 char because of that reason, and we're just happy with it. So we keep that the same.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you same thing about the yeast, which you just explained. I was going to ask you with regard to the yeast, because some distilleries obviously have different strains that they use, but you guys have the one. Is that something that you guys that's been used for an extended period of time, or has that changed over the years? Or
we isolated that yeast in right after Prohibition,
Oh,
and we've used that same strain since then, and we protect it quite well. We have it in 5 different locations around the world, just in case all hell breaks loose. We can still keep our yeast, And if that all fails, it's in my freezer at home.
that's what I was gonna say. Do you have a storage like like the old time distillers that would have their water system, their water well or whatever? They'd take their jug home and lower it down in the well at night.
Oh yeah,
keep it.
oh yeah. I keep it at home. That way, I'm personally, I can personally make sure it's still there. I'm a bit of a control freak, I guess.
There's nothing wrong with that. Like Colonel Sanders with his chicken recipe, right? You gotta keep that protected. So, we've talked about we've talked about the distillery, talked about the past. So let's kind of look at the future with Buffalo Trace. I know you've said you're growing substantially. So what all is going on with you all there, and what the future of Buffalo Trace? What's that look like?
Yeah. Well, the future, we think the exciting part for us is the demand for the bourbon is still strong, and again, we're just getting started globally. We're just dabbling really, and the future looks bright in getting our products out, out there. So last year we spent about $40 million on our cooking operation and expanded it. We took it from a 30,000 gallon cooking capacity to a 80,000 gallon cooking capacity, and we spent $11 million on fermentation. We're spending $20 million on our still house this summer and next summer, and we're spending $50 million on our drying operation, and we're spending $75 million a year on warehousing. So all these things are, we're just with no end in sight. So people ask me all the time, when are you going to stop expanding? And the next thing we're going to do is build a new distillery. So there's no end to it.
Yeah. So new distillery. I mean, is that something on site there at the same location? Nope.
We've maxed out our space here. We've gotten to the point where there's no square inches available. We've looked. So
that's what I was going to say. I mean, I know, going by there, that's the cool thing about living in Lexington is that, when I work in Louisville, I get to drive right through Frankfort and can stop by your guys' place and pay a visit. But yeah, you guys are kind of landlocked there. So obviously there's limited expansion that you all can do. So would the intention still be to stay in Frankfort then, or?
Well, we'll just have to review that. We do have a few years before we get to that point, because with the expansions that we have planned, we should be in pretty good shape for a few years. But again, if the demand continues to grow like it is and all things stay the same, we got to look and see what's out there.
Sure.
Now from there.
With some of your brands, like for Blanton's, there was a lot of export that goes on with that, and there's different things like the gold and whatnot. But now, is it right that you all are, that's starting to be released in the U.S. now? Is that correct?
It's right. We did a small release. I mean,
okay.
Volume wise, it's not going to amount a whole lot, but because we don't have the bourbon, same story.
Sure.
All of that was intended to be export, and we did open it up. We got so many requests, just like we do on other things, from our consumers. So we make changes based on that, and we offered a couple of releases, and we're going to continue that every year. So we're not going to stop doing that, and we'll grow it, just like the rest of our products. But it'll be a slow thing because there's just not a lot of volume there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to meet the demand when it's so much. I mean,
yeah,
it's pretty crazy. And Blanton's is a perfect example. Another one that's really, it's hard to find. There's no doubt about it. And that's another one that I'll buy anytime I find it, just to have it, because a lot of people enjoy it. I enjoy it, and it's a great bourbon to share with people too. So I'll always pick that up.
I always give people examples. So they say, well, we can't find Eagle Rare on the shelf, or we can't find Sazerac Rye 18-year-old on the shelf. And I say, okay, so think back 18 years ago. Were you drinking Sazerac Rye? And they say, well, hell, I wasn't even drinking bourbon. And I say, well, so we based all of our production plans based on 18 years ago
Right.
on what we thought people were going to drink.
Right.
And you weren't even in the category.
Right. Yeah.
So it's your fault. I always turn it around. It's your fault.
That's what you get for drinking this stuff. I mean, it's your fault. But no, that's what, going back to what we talked about earlier. And I was kind of making jokes about the Excel spreadsheets and whatnot. But, just trying to project out, 12 years, 18 years, 17 years for Eagle Rare. 20 years for Pappy, 23 years for Pappy. I mean, that's just, that's kind of crazy. Now, you guys, you have a warehouse there. I think it's called Warehouse X. Is that right? Is that the experimental? So can you kind of talk a little bit about what kind of mad scientist stuff goes on in that warehouse?
We're still pretty big on trying different recipes and trying different production techniques and distillation. It's fun, to do that.
Sure.
And try creating different flavors and so on. But we didn't really have the ability to experiment with the environment. It's kind of like the wind tunnel at Ford or whatever. You're going to try different angles and how does that environment, airflow, sunlight, temperature, how does that change that whiskey in that barrel? Because we know that the barrel imparts so many extracts and flavors on that whiskey. It's probably the most important aspect of the bourbon making process. So we needed a way to manipulate that environment. And so we created this Warehouse X, where we have these chambers where we can manipulate airflow and temperature and sunlight. And we did that so we can experiment differently in each of those chambers. And then we compare it and try to learn. So we laid out 20 years of experiments, and we're in year number, I think it's year number 5 now. So, and we're just continuing.
So are you taking like the mash bills that you currently have then and laying them down? Okay.
So we take Buffalo Trace mash bill because we have a really good set of standards and we know all about our current warehouses. And then we take that into that warehouse and we try all these different experiments, either a 2-year experiment or a 3 or 4-year experiment, depending on what we're doing. So we're exploring all those aspects. And at the end of 20 years, we should be able to explain when you get a barrel of Buffalo Trace out of warehouse C, because we're also monitoring our current warehouses for temperature and humidity. And we'll be able to explain why that barrel tastes the way it does, based on the temperature and humidity and all the things it was exposed to.
Right.
So it's just another aspect to be able to, understand the way why the bourbon tastes the way it does.
Now I was there, I guess it was maybe 2019, and did a tour. And I swear I could have sworn the guy said that you all were working on a 40-year-old bourbon. Is that true? Or did I just make that up?
Well, it is true. We're, on the other end of it, we also are experimenting with extended aging.
Okay.
We kind of feel like the Scotch guys, if they're going to have a 50-year-old Scotch,
right,
there ought to be a way for us to have a 50-year-old bourbon.
Right.
Now, the problem is our environment doesn't allow you to do that. I mean, it'll evaporate out of the barrel and you won't have anything left. So how do you do that? You got to drop the temperature down to the point where you're not going to get that interaction as much as you would, in a hotter warehouse. So, we've got a warehouse that basically has, we've got the temperature drop down to the point where that slows that aging process way down.
Okay.
And we're in the middle of testing that. I think that's in about a year number 4 now. And we're testing and tasting that whiskey to see how it's going to age in that warehouse. And we feel, so far the results have been really good.
So that's, let's see, 4 years. So you got 36 more to go, Harlen. Yeah. Are you going to will you still be there when they?
I'm probably not going to see the results of that project, but the fun thing is, though, we have put it into that warehouse some 20-plus-year-old bourbons.
Oh, okay.
So how does those bourbons finish up is another aspect to that project.
Nice.
And mainly because we don't have the patience, right?
Yeah.
We'd like to see some results. And so we got a little bit of everything going.
Yeah. Well, that sounds good. Well, they can make you eventually the Master Distiller Emeritus, right? So
right.
You'll be you'll be on staff and have that title. And yeah, you'll be wheeling yourself around. Exactly right. And you'll be able to taste that 40-year-old.
That's not the way we used to do it back in my day.
Oh yeah. So you also have a single barrel program that you do. And can you talk a little bit about that program and how that works? And
well, again, in '84, we were the first.
Right.
We brag about that a little bit. We don't like to brag, but that is one thing we brought to market and, introduced the concept, and we haven't slowed down. We've got a lot of offerings out there.
Sure.
And we did decide, and I think we were the first to do that too. We decided to offer that to the public, coming in and selecting their own barrels. And, now everybody does that, I think, but,
yeah.
We do that with a few selected bourbons, and you can do that with Buffalo Trace.
Right.
You can do that with, I think, well, better not quote me. We have a website that you can go to and see what's available, but I think we do Weller and, so, some Ryes and different things. But anyway, you can go in and select a barrel one at a time, just like single barrel Buffalo Trace.
Right.
And if you like it, we bottle it up, and, they can give you, you can put something on the bottle if you want, a medallion and so on.
Yeah.
And bottle it up, and you get the whole barrel.
Yeah. And that's what actually the Buffalo Trace that I had was from Merle's Whiskey Kitchen over in Louisville. So that was their single barrel pick. But that's, I talked about the Eagle Rare earlier. That's one of my favorite things to do is when I can find those picks, I'll pick those up, and also that full proof. It's always good to find those barrel picks. And yes, I have, attempted to be able to purchase a barrel online, but that's every year when that comes out, it's about 10 seconds, and then it's like, oh, it's over with.
I know and again, we're blessed to have that demand, and we were very
Sure.
grateful and thankful, and
Right.
We just wish we had more to sell. I mean, it's hard to say how many barrels we could sell in a minute.
Oh yeah.
But we're spending all that money in doing it, and we're growing, but that is a fun part of it. It's a win-win for both of us, because the consumers that get the barrels, they pick those themselves, and they can be proud of, this is something they selected, and they get behind it. And then of course we're selling bourbon, it's always good.
Sure. And you that program expanded, I guess, a little bit this year, right? With the E.H. Taylor. Now you're doing some single barrel picks on that. Is that right?
That's right. And again, I think it's called, the go-to is buffalotracedistillery.com.
Sure.
And you can get on there, and all the links are on there for, all the things you can find and purchase.
Now, will you guys ever do? I don't think you do like the Stag Junior. You don't do those as barrel picks, do you? I don't think.
In general, no. I know of a couple that we have done in the past, but in general, that's not one that's readily available.
Well, if you ever do, let us know.
Yeah. Well, you never say never. I mean, maybe the demand slows down, and we got all kinds of bourbon for sale at some point.
Yeah, I'll tell you, that's probably one of my favorite regulars. When I can find the batches to pick that up. But the Stag Junior is definitely it's a great bourbon. There's no doubt about it. But Matt, let's get back to the rye here. What other thoughts? What are you picking up on this?
Oh, it's just a great rye. The grain comes through on the palate as well. It's got that mintiness and then the nice cracked pepper, some nice good dark baking spices as well come through with it. And it's just a really great rye, kind of a staple for what I think ryes could be and should be.
We created this expression because of bartenders. We had the 18-year-old Sazerac, and it was doing well, and we got all kinds of feedback. We love your rye whiskey, but we can't put an 18-year-old rye whiskey in a cocktail. And we went out and did a lot of research. That bottle, if you're lucky enough to get those bottles, that's an 1800s style bottle, and homage of the, paying homage to the original, Sazerac Rye bourbon. I mean, whiskey, I'm sorry.
Sure.
And, it's a pretty neat package, and, it's a 6-year-old product and does well. If you go down to New Orleans, it's officially the ingredient for the Sazerac cocktail. It's like in the documents for the government. So we're proud of that one. But if you go anywhere in town and they're making Sazerac cocktails, they're using that 6-year-old.
Yeah.
And it's fun to see.
And that runs generally retail. That runs right around what, $35 maybe, something like that. Is that accurate, or is that?
That may be accurate. I'm not really up on the latest price on the 6-year-old, but
Gotcha.
that may be a little high.
Okay.
You know, it's a 6-year-old rye whiskey. By rights, it should sell, maybe 30 or something. But
yeah,
you know, you see prices anywhere from 20 to 300. I mean, it just depends on where you're at.
And that's
crazy.
Yeah, that's true. You know, but it's great tonight because, you know, we've tasted the Buffalo Trace, we've tasted the Weller Special Reserve, and now the Sazerac Rye, and all three of those, you know, for people that, to me, if someone's just starting to drink whiskey, starting to drink bourbons or ryes, those three expressions are perfect jumping off points to introduce people to bourbon and to rye. I think it's a great opportunity, you know, a great way to introduce people to those types of whiskeys, for sure.
Yeah, that's what they're for.
Yeah, very good. Well, guys, we're actually at the end of session 3. I'm sorry to say that, but you know, we appreciate you spending the time with us, Harlen. We've had a really good time. But Matt, before we close it out, final thoughts on the Sazurai.
Oh, Sazurai is always a standby for me.
Yeah, definitely. It's always on my bar. I've always got a bottle, at least one or more, tucked away somewhere. So definitely enjoy this for sure. So Harlen, before we wrap it up, anything you want to add where people can find? Well, people know where they can find Buffalo Trace. You're online. You guys are everywhere. You're in Frankfurt. In the tours that you guys have over there, my wife and I, we did the ghost tour back in 2019. That was a lot of fun. And then you do the Christmas lights as well. And we drove through with my son, and we did the Christmas lights. You got a lot of cool stuff over there that people can experience, for sure.
Yeah, we're open 7 days a week. The tours are free. We're practicing, you know, safe tours with COVID. But last year, before COVID, we gave 300,000 people a tour. So it's definitely somewhere fun to, you know, bring your family and, you know, check out some of the history of the place. It's a history tour. It's a bourbon tour.
Yeah.
Something to check out for everybody.
Yep. Yeah, definitely is. All right, Matt, before we wrap it up, anything else you want to add?
Harlen, thanks for taking time out to sit down with us this evening and to give our listeners a good glance into your history and your past and where you're at now with Buffalo Trace, and also the same for Buffalo Trace, its history, its present, and where you're headed in the future. We really appreciate it.
No problem.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we definitely enjoyed it. I'm going to wrap it up. Send us home with our tagline, which is, may your glasses always be full, and may you keep on living the bourbon life.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. Our mission at the Bourbon Life is simple: to share our passion for all things bourbon with you every week. And we'd really love to hear your thoughts on how we're doing. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at The Bourbon Life. You can also contact us by email at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. And you can always find us on your favorite podcast platform. If you have a moment, we'd love it if you would rate us and give us a review. So until next week, we hope your glass is always full and that you keep on living the bourbon life.
Whether it's rye, sour mash Tennessee whiskey, or bourbon, Davidson Reserve has something delicious to offer any whiskey lover's palate. Pick up a bottle of one of our award-winning Davidson Reserve whiskeys from your local retailer today. Visit www.davidsonreserve.com for more information. And cheers to drinking local. Founded by J.W. McCulloch in 1885, Green River was known as the Whiskey Without Regrets. DSP KY10 was known for making some of the best whiskey in Kentucky, but fire, prohibition, multiple owners, and a gradual decline over many years eventually led to the demise of the brand. But last year, Green River celebrated the revival of Green River Distilling Company at its original home in Owensboro, Kentucky, and the team at Green River is proud to bring the same commitment to the best ingredients, craftsmanship, and tradition today, led by 8th generation distiller and Kentuckian Jacob Call. We encourage you to come and experience a special part of bourbon heritage in Owensboro. Find out more at www.greenriverdistilling.com.